Specialist staff members will get you contracts, not generic staff members. They have to be specialist. They have to be like support workers that are specialist. They have to be nurses that are specialist. Complex care, for example. So look at what team members you've got currently, and do they meet the criteria to pass the accreditation? Because sometimes they will choose the best person, which is understandable, for the job, for example. So when you're looking at winning contracts, you got to think about what type of contract do you want. Do you want generic type of contract where you're providing just personal care, for example, elderly, frail, children services, for example? Do you have that? Are you skilled in that? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Then there's also adults, which have mental health that you could specialize in. Then there's also end of life, palliative care that you could specialize in. Or you could even say, right, we specialize in private clients. We will only deal with private clients, and there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, you have to do what is best for you and your business. So what is it that you truly want that's inside of your heart of hearts that you know that you want for your business? You may want to do temporary staff members, provide temporary staff members. You may want to do permanent placement where you're placing staff permanently, and I spoke about this last week. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be going into contract portals, and I'll be sharing my screen and things like that. We'll be going into that, whereby I will be sharing my screen and showing you some contract portals that you can go onto to get contracts. But first of all, you got to understand what it is and who you're going to be providing to, because I'm not going to just jump straight into that today, because I want to make sure that you're in the right mindset and frame so that you can have more insight, and it will be more productive for you. So I want you all to think about what type of staff members do you want to provide, or contractors that you want to provide for your healthcare business. So another thing is the location. What location will you be in? Will it be the whole of the UK, or are you going to choose certain aspects of the UK, like north, south, east, west, for example? So what is your location? Maybe you want to be in, say, London, and then give yourself a 20-mile radius to travel so that your staff members are traveling. And sometimes you have to interview staff members where a particular contract is. That means that you may have to go out of your comfort zone and interview candidates that live in a certain location because you got a contract there. So that's one thing. Another way for winning contracts is making sure that you have followed, for example, if you're in the UK, the NHS guidelines for employers, for agency staff. There's also you have to think about the working time directive as well, making sure that people are not going over the hours, and to make sure that they are working within the limits. If they're going to go over those hours, then they need to agree and sign for that as well. So I really want to make sure that everybody is sort of getting into this system where we're building the pillars to enable us to then be able to apply for contracts, okay? Now, whether you decide to, your clients, you need to look at who your pipeline is. Okay, so your pipeline is it care homes? What is your priority? Will it be care homes first, NHS second, for example, private hospitals third, in the community fourth, for example? That's temporary agency, but what about permanent agency? Placing 2 people a month can produce you over, say, 150,000 a year, just by placing just 2 people a month to organizations that require nurses and healthcare workers. So sometimes you may get it where a care home may say, you know what, I need 36 nurses this year, because they know that there's going to be a shortage, especially if they're a very large care home. I would suggest approach the really large care homes as well. So if you was to place 36 nurses in a year, for example, and that's, say, for example, if they're paying 35,000, and I'm just saying this off the top of my head here, right? So that's like, how much is 36 nurses times 37,000? It's 1,332,000. So you're going to be billing 1,332,000, for example, worth of work, but you're not going to get all of that, okay? But you'll get, for example, you may say, you know what, because you're going to give me that, you're going to make me a preferred supplier, for example, then I will do that, but you to use me first, I will do it at, say, 10 or 15%. So let's start with 15%, because you always want to start off high, okay? So times that by 15, that then gives you 199,000, nearly 200,000 a year. In dollars, that's more. You know, by placing 36 nurses a year, if we divide that by 12, you know, that's 3 nurses a month. Isn't that a lot easier? Hashtag easier. Because if you can do that and get 200,000, a year, and the only overhead you've got is like your light, electricity, your mobile phone, your insurance. You're not having to pay staff wages, you're not having to pay. I'm trying to show you easy methods for 2024, okay? I want to make it easier for you. And that's just me giving you an example. If you was to do support workers or healthcare workers, if you want to start off at that level, then you can do. Then it could be, for example, they need 15 healthcare workers and 36 nurses, for example. That could come from one place, because in care, the turnover is high. Wouldn't you agree? So you could help provide a hospital with nurses, for example, and you could get a contract that's like, say, 250,000 for the year. Okay, and I'm just talking to you about this, okay? Why not look at the permanent option as well? And I'm going to go through this over the next couple of days, where I'm going to show you about the temp and the permanent option that you can look at for contracting, for example. But it all depends on how much time you've got on your hands and how much strength that you've got with running a healthcare business, because it's not easy. It's difficult. I'm not saying it is easy. I'm not saying it's a get-rich-quick scheme, because it's not. if you've gone into this to get rich quick, that's the wrong way to do it, because sometimes things take time and you have to be patient. So what type of healthcare business are you currently running? So let's go into the next thing. What is your competitors doing that you like and see that you could perhaps emulate? And it's okay to do that, because if they're winning and they're doing really well, why would you not want to emulate what they're doing? It just makes sense, doesn't it? So what type of agency are you going to be? Because before you apply for these contracts, you've got to know what type of service you're going to provide, what level of service you're going to provide, what are your charges, so what will you charge for being a recruitment care agency, for example. You're going to be placing healthcare workers and nurses into care homes, for example. Then you look at what the hourly rate is for the carer in the location of where you are. Then you're going to put your percentage on top, which could be, for the UK, for example, 65%, for example. If it's NHS, then you have to look at the price caps and keep it at 50% and under. Don't go too low, because you want to make sure that you're profitable. The big companies can go really low because they see it as a short-term loss, because they think that they're going to gain from that, okay? So what type of healthcare business are you going to do? Before we start looking at applying for contracts, we've got to look at how we're going to win the contracts. What makes a winning contract? What makes that buyer buy from a supplier like you and you win that contract? So we have to make sure that we're laying the groundwork first, the foundations, in order to do that. Another way that you can win contracts is through subcontracting. Find out who's won contracts, and then we can approach them. You can approach them, for example, to see whether they want to work with you. You introduce yourself, and then you speak with them and let them know that you're able to provide them with staff. So this is like a live stream, for example. So we need to look at ways that we can grow our business in a quick, effective, efficient way without us stumbling and falling and we don't know what we're doing when we do get the contract. Because if that happens, it can be taken away from you, and it could put you at risk at other contracts as well. So what is it that you're going to offer that's going to enable you to have winning contracts? What is your branding like? What does your branding look like for your healthcare business? What is it that you're offering that's different from everyone else? That you can articulate that. But one thing I'll say to all of you is to go into your community and find out what the need is before you approach any government organization, because then that way they know that you've done your research and that you're there to help support them as well. So what is it that you can do in your community to find out what the needs are so that you can win a contract? By speaking with the community, by speaking with the organizations that are in the community, you then, when you talk with the councils, for example, or the NHS, you